Morning, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Andy Mowat. Andy, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You have an amazing background. I've been following you on LinkedIn, tracking your content, so it's great to get together. But before we get going, it'll be cool if you would please take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself and what you're doing at Whispered.
Yeah, I have run RevOps at 4 unicorns, Upwork, Box, Culture Amp, and Carta. I've gotten to kind of see IPO scale twice and then kind of see from early stage up through scaling twice. For me, and then at the same time, periodically, I'll go do something really fun and entrepreneurial and different. What that's meant is kind of 3 times in my career, I've had really challenging searches. And I realized that it's so intimidating to do. And so I just love connecting people. I've been doing it for years. For 10 years, I've maintained this Google sheet of like rockstar RevOps people looking for the next thing. But when I started looking for my job before Carta, I kind of called all my friends. I was like, how do I do this easier and simpler? And so I called all my friends and I basically asked them 2 questions. I was like, when you interview at a company, what do you do with that information? Because I wanted to know like insights on companies. And they're like, I don't know. I have this sheet. I throw it away. And then I said, well, when a recruiter calls you, what do you do with that role? And they're like, well, I just kind of, if it doesn't fit for me, I just move on. And so basically people have been whispering those 2 things to us for the last 3 years. We've built a massive database of confidential insights on companies. We've built a deep database on roles. And then we've kind of added this connection graph that we can basically open any door for any person. And then we've added kind of the community and support to it as well, too. So that's what Whispered is today. And then we're launching very soon our AI as well, which can help everybody with their search. And I think it's a very scary process to look for your next role at the senior level. So that's what Whispered's about. And I'm full-time on it since April.
Wow. Well, before we dig deep into that area, are you an engineer?
No, I am not. I think RevOps people, they talk about there are people that are customized and there's people that are configure. I'm a world-class configurer of things. Like I'm really, really good at no-code tools. Like my last startup was built on V1 was built on Airtable and Zapier. Whispered V1 was built on Airtable, Zapier, and AppSmith and a couple other things. Since then, we've progressed and got an engineering team. But for me, I'm a big fan of like, you've got to be able to code these things up yourself. And I think between like the lovables and the cursors and Zapier and Airtable and all these other tools, I think you can kind of code something up yourself these days.
Yeah, because I've interviewed both group of people. They're kind of software engineers that moved into RevOps, and they're English literature. They were just simply logical and love to think in a structured way. They moved into that side, and both had immense impact. So I want to go back a little bit to the beginning of RevOps, right? This term has not been around for a long period of time. So can you, like when you started at Upwork, was it already in existence or is it being formed? Can you talk a little bit?
I retitled myself after the fact, right? Like I started off running BD, then I took on sales, SMB sales. Then I was like, shit, we need a CRM. Then my CEO was like, well, can you do the email automation too? So I think I sent an email at Upwork to 1 million people. I broke the domain for a little while. And so and then I started to really become friends with the Salesforce people and build stuff. So I think most RevOps, sales ops, MOPs people, they fall into it, right? Like it's not something it's not like sales or marketing or product or eng where it's a career path. And I think people find it. Personally, I don't like the term RevOps. I think it's way overused. I think when you meet a RevOps person, 9 times out of 10, they're just a sales ops person with a sexier title. But everyone's now titled themselves RevOps. I have like 50 friends that are all like VP plus. We're all in a Slack group together, and we all prefer the term go-to-market ops. But because to me, go-to-market ops is you got to have the MOPs piece and you got to have the CS ops piece in there as well too. I think like you take 10 RevOps people off the street, a lot of them have probably never done anything but SOPs. And there's so much more to a full function go-to-market ops team. But I don't fight it too much. I remember at one point I tweaked my LinkedIn profile and I moved it from RevOps to go-to-market ops, and like viewers and recruiter and everything like that dropped dramatically, right? So it's a term that's kind of stuck and I don't fight it.
So if it's okay with you, I'd love to spend a few minutes on these definitions for our audience. I think it'll be amazing. So can you sort of break it down? What is go-to-market ops? How does RevOps, marketing ops, customer success ops, how do they fit in? And also talk to us a little bit about the journey, because you for some major unicorns. They've gone through these rapid growth cycles, and it has also evolved. The tool stack has evolved. The people have evolved. The organization, have evolved. So let's first go through the definition, and then we'll go through the journey, evolution of it through your lens.
Yeah, I mean, I would define it as RevOps or GTM Ops is full function go-to-market operations that's doing the systems. Actually, I'll pull up one. I won't share it here, but we got a playbook on Whispered around like what are the basic functions of each thing. So I'll just pull it up to refresh my memory. To me, there are kind of 6 functions within it. There's SOPs, there's GTM systems, there's sales strategy, there's post-sales / CS ops, there's MOPs, and then there's enablement. Sometimes enablement's in, sometimes it's not, depends upon how strong it is. And does your RevOps leader think in terms of not just what are the systems and data to sell, but also how do we sell? So that one I think you can give or take it depending upon structure and org. Personally, I and a lot of my peer group would never take a role that doesn't have the MOPs piece in it, right? Because then you have this whole separate team that's trying to write into Salesforce and write into the sales systems. It's not coordinated. Depending upon the size of the org of the company, sometimes you'll see very mature companies rip out the GTM systems piece into a separate spot. I had that at Carta. I didn't have it at Box. And so I'm happy to dive into any of them, but those would be the 6 that I would cite as kind of the core parts of that world.
So let's take a minute or so on each of those areas. And if you can walk us through each of those, and instead of using abbreviation, if you can use the full term, so like customer success ops, sales ops.
Yeah, totally. And by the way, this is all I've written. I think you've seen like the 6-part handbook on RevOps. So it's like, it's all in there. But so SOPs equals sales operations. It's the planning, the territory design, the routing, the commissions, typically the sales data, the territory segmentation, and it can extend, right? Like that's kind of the core thing. Go-to-market systems is oftentimes doing the actual admin of those systems. Sales strategy is generally like the business partner with the sales and sometimes the marketing leaders. So I call it like the strategic side, and you're thinking through like team design. Oftentimes they may be guiding the territory plans, making sure you're hitting the numbers, helping people understand things like pipeline coverage and all of the kind of running the metrics and the strategy side of things. Post-sales CS ops is generally using product data to make the CSMs more efficient and targeted. Marketing operations is all the systems with the marketing, right? So you're flowing generally from a marketing automation platform, and then the marketing systems then talk to the sales systems. And then enablement is scaled training of how people sell.
So when you look at the evolution of this as a discipline, right, in the tool set and the people skill set, can you walk us through the 3 major organizations that you worked for over the last 10 years? How did this evolve? Where was it about a decade ago? Where was it 5 years ago? Where is it now?
I mean, I don't think in the macro, I think in the micro, right? So like I can talk about how it was designed at each of the companies I was at, but it's like, it's always evolving. It's always changing. I think we're in like the dark ages right now. Upwork, when I was there, was kind of like 30 million in revenue, and we were building it out, right? And we were figuring it out and learning and building out, because Upwork was, in essence, and the term didn't exist then, it was a PLG type of company. And so it was, people were showing up, they were finding roles, hiring people, but it was mostly done on the system. And then we started experimenting with enterprise sales, and that's when you started to need the system side. So you see PLG companies often mature later on the RevOps side. And so there's a whole interesting discussion on PLG and RevOps. Box, I joined at like 450 million in revenue. It was super mature. I ran the post-sale ops and then I took over the MOP side as well. It was really well-run company. Super, like there were concepts that I was exposed to there, like a pipeline coverage or something like that just I hadn't conceptualized before. And frankly, you couldn't do them in the existing systems. You needed like a data layer to do them. And so that was where I really started to understand the power of the data side. Culture Amp, I joined at 5 million. We took it to 150. I basically built the entire thing from scratch there. And we brought in a really great set of data folks for go-to-market data and built out the modern data stack. So I really learned a lot about the modern data stack and the power of it there. So we, if people don't know terms like Fivetran, DBT, I guess now they're all one census. Now they're all like kind of one company, but that is a powerful skill set that I think people need. So I think in the last like 7 years ago, data started to become almost like I almost wouldn't hire somebody that didn't have SQL knowledge, not because you needed SQL per se, but you needed to have the fluency and understanding of how data worked. And then I did a startup, and then I went to Carta, again, like 400-ish million in revenue, was still maturing. And they didn't have a lot of the maturity that Carta had, that Box had. So I brought a lot of that over. Yeah. That's maybe, and then I think the next wave you're seeing is AI driving a lot of change in the business. I was on with 20 or 15 like RevOps leaders this morning within Whisper. We were all talking about like how AI is changing things, the concept of GTM engineers, which a lot of CEOs don't understand, but they think they need. And so happy to take it in any direction.
Yeah. So I would love to get into that. But before we get into this, you just mentioned a couple of words. You said we're in the dark ages right now. With all these investments and stack development and proliferation of, sort of sales tech and MarTech, you think we're in the dark ages?
We are again, right? Like the systems we're using kind of suck. I wrote an article a little while ago of your next CRM will be your data warehouse. I was sitting with a friend who had like 300 million ARR. He's like, come on in and just look at my stuff. Like, look at our stack and tell me what you think. And I was like, oh God, feels so painful, right? Like, I think we all know the UX of Salesforce is terrible.
Sorry to interrupt. How many applications did they have?
That's almost an impossible question to answer, right? Like any SaaS company of 300 million is going to have like hundreds of applications, right? It's like rationalization and figuring it out. Like there is no answer to that question. Like I couldn't answer it for Carta. It's like, the list at Carta was probably 50, 60 long that our team maintained. Yeah, I don't know the $300 million company, how many apps they have, but at a fundamental level, like Salesforce has not changed in a long time. The UX is mediocre and people are trying to push more and more stuff into it. It's not really built for a unstructured data world and a product world. And so I'm starting to see this next gen. I'm invested / huge fan of Inflection.io. They're doing amazing things with like marketing on. If you think about it this way, right? Like you can build a field for product data, but what you really care about is a data feed and how that data feed is pumping in and how do you interpret that data and operationalize it, right? So the concept that I love with them is like Clay's weekly, like week in review of what you did is very similar to the Spotify, like here's all the songs you listened to this year, right? And you can't do that with legacy SaaS map and CRM. But with Inflection, they power Clay, they power some other massive names that I can't yet mention. And so they're allowing you to do things and use data to engage your prospects and your customers in ways you can't do with traditional systems.
What's your take on HubSpot?
I think they have a better chance of surviving because they understand the problem. But I have a list of like 20 AI CRM 2.0s that are really trying to do it, right? Like AI CRM 2.0 is you're bringing automated data, and HubSpot screwed up with the Clearbit acquisition. Like it was it didn't work. It wasn't integrated well. HubSpot's fundamentally structured more like fields rather than unstructured data. And I think they've done a really good job of growing with their customers. Like I remember we were on HubSpot at Culture Amp on the marketing automation side. And I said to them, like, we're big enough now where we're spending enough with you that Marketo could be an option. They're like, we don't want to lose you. Like, and so I think they do a world-class job at CS. Their CEO came from the CS side. And so that just tells you how good they are. Like the CS experience I had HubSpot was second to none. I think Salesforce is okay. Marketo is absolutely dismal, right? Like I know 30 MOPs teams that hate Marketo. I remember we had an outage and Salesforce solved their side of the problem. It was a delayed sync, and Salesforce solved their side of the problem in an hour. Marketo, like 4 months later, was still blaming it on other people. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. I think HubSpot would kind of be in the middle on that side. I think I respect them a lot. Like I would short Salesforce and go long on HubSpot if I could. I guess I could play that arbitrage. I just don't spend much time in the public markets. And so I like HubSpot. I still think they're vulnerable.
if you look at these two companies, the reason I brought them up because we're going to go into the people side next is that one is squarely focused on SMB and mid market, which is HubSpot. And so, speaking of data in this age of AI, they have a much simplified data because you're pretty much in like we're a HubSpot user and all of our customers are Salesforce user, right? So we know both of those worlds. And our data stack, we run from marketing to sales to CS to ops, everything in HubSpot. It's very, very simplified. We have, I think, 8 different apps that connects to HubSpot. So we have a really unified view, right? But when I look at our customers, Fortune 30, we have 30 Fortune 100 companies. They have a mixed system, right? They have Dynamics, they have SAP, they have Salesforce, they have, hundreds of data feeds. So when you look at RevOps in those organizations versus, RevOps in a HubSpot customer base, can you map us through what the organization looks like? Like typically a mid-market, $50 million company, what does the RevOps team looks like versus a $500 million to two, three, $4, $5 billion company?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit. It's funny. I thought you were going in a different direction with the question. I mean, but at a $50 million company, you got 4 to 6 people, and they're doing a lot of like the systems people are the same people that are the ops people, right? And it's eventually you start to specialize each of those functions, and you get to a $500 million company. Releases matter, release processes matter, maturity matters, and so you end up throwing in additional people to kind of do it. And so like bigger companies just can't run as fast. I don't know if that answers the question, or happy to go in a direction.
Yeah, no, that's great because I want to come back to our follow-on questions. If you look at these two companies, you said HubSpot has a better chance than Salesforce because the people who are working on a product with a product, if that product survives, their skill set survives because they can carry on. If Salesforce is, if you're saying fundamentally that is at risk, all these thousands, I don't know how many thousands of admins and RevOps people are in that ecosystem.
I don't think that exists anymore. Like I talked to a RevOps fractional person like the other day, like 2 years ago, and they said, I'm betting my company, my agency on HubSpot. I was like, what? Like that doesn't make any sense. And then I started to look into it. Like HubSpot's going up market there, and so increasingly, I am seeing HubSpot agencies. I see a lot of them, and I feel like people are using agencies, and HubSpot's building more sophistication. I mean, you would be shocked a couple of years ago if you used HubSpot CRM more than $2 million in revenue. Now you could totally use it up to like a reasonable number. And so like HubSpot's good. They're executing well, and then they're kind of growing at the bottom. I feel like anytime a company's like, we're just going enterprise, I'm like, to your point, like eventually people will pick you off at the bottom. But I don't believe that there is no ecosystem around HubSpot anymore in the same way there is for Salesforce. But I think a lot of the Salesforce ecosystem are now realizing they can also service the HubSpot ecosystem. And so those are kind of merging together into one.
So if you look at in the HubSpot space, like a mid-market space, right? I don't know, let's say $2 million to maybe even $50 million size company or 100. Are you looking for more multifunctional capability in an individual versus when you go into the enterprise, you're looking for more single app, single stack focus? Like what is the skill set that you're looking for or companies should be looking for in these two types of environments?
It's mindset. It's not skill set. Just over and over and over again. Like if you don't have the intensity, the ability to articulate, to work cross-functionally, to communicate, to get your hands dirty, like you're not going to work in any environment. And so I've got a whole article on my LinkedIn of like, what's the mindset I hire for RevOps people, right? Like, yes, you have to have done it and had the pattern recognition, but like, that's not enough. And, I do a lot of growing my own junior folks with RevOps, and then you'll bring in like director level and up. You kind of need to bring in people that have really seen it and done it well before. But it's like the junior levels, you can absolutely grow those people from like high performing CS people or high performing support, or, when you have that salesperson, it's like, hey, Julie just automated this thing over here and she works for the SDR leader. You're like, I'd like to meet Julie, and just Julie want a career in RevOps, right? So I think it's like below director, I am often growing my own. And then above director, you just need people that know what they're doing. And I don't know. I mean, like I don't look at the checkbox skill set. Like I'll ask a question. It's like I'm going to pick 3 terms. you pick one. I'm going to go as deep as I possibly can on that term until we're done. And I know if you know your stuff or not. And by the end of it, you'll know if people are faking it or not.
But how do you check for mindset?
How do I interview for mindset? It's kind of in that same question, right? Like, I'm just going to go as deep as I possibly can. Like, tell me how you built this thing. How did you do it? How did you? It's funny. We had somebody at one recent company where I interviewed them, and then my director interviewed them, and I was like, I would not touch this person. They're like, I want to give him a chance, and gave him a chance, and didn't work out, right? And to his credit, like 30 days later, he fixed the problem. And so I don't know. I mean, I interview hundreds of people all the time. We're talking to people. It's like, how if people are. We've talked a lot recently about like, are you a doer or are you a manager? And like, even when I ran a 60-person team at Carta, like I tried to be a doer as much as I could.
So when you look at these sort of two, segments, mid-market and enterprise, and then if we start moving into this sort of the discussion of AI, and you went through the structured and unstructured data, at Dreamforce, we saw integration of unstructured data in a structured workflow. Where are you seeing adoption, and where are people looking for these new age skill sets? Are you seeing that more in mid-market? Are you seeing more in enterprise, or doesn't matter?
I mean, things generally adopt earlier in the mid-market and the earlier stage, right? Like you get to rebuild the systems. You don't go buy Salesforce. You buy Clarify or Coffee or Adio or something like that instead. You don't go buy Marketo. You buy Inflection. And so I think the older businesses are stuck with the same legacy stuff, and it's going to be harder to change. But still, you need people that can use AI and get you the right data and understand stuff. And so I think if you've got a tired skill set, enterprise might be a little bit safer, but even enterprise is starting to really get good at interviewing for what's the fluency you have with this stuff, right? Like, it's pretty much like if you're not putting stuff into ChatGPT, you should be shot right now. But that's easy, right? But have you built things in AI, and have you used AI and data in novel ways? So I mean, no company should hire people that aren't completely AI fluent at this point.
So let's talk a little bit about hiring at a leadership level, which you are very passionate about. So when you think about $100 million company on its own, the VP of RevOps, maybe reporting up to the CRO, and then $100 million unit in a $5 billion division, are they the same people?
No, they're different people. I mean, they can play in both. There are plenty of people that can play in both and do that, right? Like, I would say it's more like the person at 7-10 million in revenue versus 100 or like call it 200 and up are different people, right? Like, because you have to be a leader of people and grow. Like, Box really beat this into me in a good way, right? Which was like, we believe, and I've got a fun article on this on my LinkedIn, which is like, what is director level, right? And director level is not a title; it's a mindset. And if you don't tick that way, if you don't think that way, like you will struggle. And so I think you need to be comfortable at that 100. When you get to $100 million, like, you damn well better know how to hire, manage, and grow director level people as a VP. And so maybe the answer I would give there is no, they're not different people. I feel like when you're at a 10-15 million dollar company, you kind of just get your hands dirty and you don't have to lead. But for me, the ability to manage up, the ability to force trade-offs, the ability to articulate the strategy for your function and bring people along, the ability to bring insights rather than just metrics, and the ability to like communicate cross-functionally. Those are fundamentally necessary skills when you get above like $30 or $40 million in revenue.
So how do you interview for those kind of skills? And especially going back, you repeated again, mindset. How do you interview for mindset?
Those aren't mindset. Those are skill, right? Like, you just talk about like, tell me great people you hired. How did you manage? Tell me a person that you managed that didn't work that you had to manage out, right? Like, if you haven't managed out 2 or 3 people, like, you probably aren't very good as a leader. Like, tell me like when you took over a new function, like how did you onboard to that function? Tell me like, how do you evaluate the talent that's on the team? What are the decisions you made? Right? Like, early on, like maybe the bad decisions I made were not moving fast enough when you knew somebody wasn't good. And so like, you make hard decisions on people and push people. My sense is I'm going to push you hard, but like, I'm here to support you. And so it's kind of similar. Like, when I'm buying software, I always tell people I'm going to be the worst customer, worst prospect and the best customer. I'm kind of the same, which is like the first 2 to 3 months of working with me, I'm going to push you hard, but then I am in your corner and I want you managing me rather than me managing you. Right. And so I I don't know. It becomes pretty obvious pretty fast on that side.
So when you're an operator, even at a various revenue level, whether it's 30 million or 400 million, you have sort of a command and control of your, at least of a space. Of course, you have to influence execs and work with multifunctional teams. So when you're building your team, you have a decent level of autonomy, right? So now that you're outside, you're helping people to build teams, right? Has your assessment process has it changed, like how you used to look for hiring people to bring them in versus how you're looking in them to sort of screen them out, recruit, and provide to another organization? Because each organization may be very different.
I guess I'd say Whispered is not a recruiter. Recruiters work for companies. Whispered works for executives. And so we are not, every week on our podcast, I bring in CROs, CEOs, and interview them about how they hire because I love to understand it. But we are ourselves not interviewing people. We are helping rockstar executives figure out their next search through giving them unposted roles, a massive network, and insights on, and then just the fundamental strategies that they don't know. So I'm not in a position of interviewing people now, right? Like when I hop on with people, I always say, don't talk to me like I'm an interviewer, talk to me like I'm a coach. And I think it changes the perspective a lot.
So talk to us a little bit, like when you're hiring from a mindset perspective, as a leader, what does it really mean? Because there's so much paranoia out there about AI. If I automate too much, I'm going to get automated out. Are you looking hesitation, reluctance in people adopting these tools, or are they jumping at it? Like, what mindsets are you seeing in the RevOps space right now from a talent perspective?
If you're not embracing AI, using it, you're in real trouble. But at the same time, think of your company. What percentage of those employees' jobs existed 100 years ago? Probably less than 1%, right? It's like those jobs didn't exist. We don't, social media influencer, Salesforce engineer, every role I listed, like MOPs, SOPs, CS Ops, enablement, none of those roles existed before all this stuff. There will be new roles that exist that we do not yet understand. And so I think people just have to be prepared for that. And what's going to happen is it's happening on a timeline that's faster than any other technological change we've ever seen. And so what that means is it's going to be a lot of shakeup, right? And so it's people are looking. I think every company wants to hire. We only hire AI fluent people anymore, but I don't think they know how to do it. We just collaborated with Captivate Talent, and I'm actually posting an article in the next week. I can send it to you if you want to include, but how companies should interview for AI fluency and how you should get prepared for those types of interviews.
That's quite amazing. I want to go back to this, maybe your journey a little bit, because you said, through that process, lots of jobs were created, roles were created, skills were created. How big is the RevOps community? Do you have an understanding of that, including mid-market and enterprise? Are we talking about few thousand people? Are we talking about hundreds of thousands of people? How big is that community?
A couple 100,000, probably at most. Yeah. It's we track 10,000 investor-backed companies in our database right now. You figure, big companies will have a team of 30 or 40. Tiny companies will have a team of 1. Companies probably shouldn't hire it before they hit 2 or 3 million in revenue. So you're going to see it. You're going to see a decent size function. But again, I never think in macro. People are like, how's the market for jobs? I'm like, I don't care. It's if you're good, you're good, and you're going to find something. If you're bad, it's going to be hard.
And those few 100,000, going back to your point, did not exist about a decade ago, right? Because at that time,
2 to 3 decades ago, I think. I think people coin terms after the rules exist, right? What year did Salesforce start? Was the year RevOps started to become important.
So from an unstructured data integration into a workflow, with a Gen AI or ML perspective, are you seeing their new tasks and skills getting attached to existing roles that will eventually spawn out and become, dedicated resources on its own?
We talk a lot about the GTM engineer. I had a talent partner at a VC asked me yesterday, hey, I've got a founder asking me about, should we be hiring a GTM engineer? I hear that's a thing. Should I hire it? You hear the same thing, forward deployed engineer. Everyone's like, I got to go get some of those. And I don't think people even understand what it is. I was literally just with a large chunk of our RevOps people looking for their next role this morning. And the topic I threw out was, what's your take on GTM engineers? Right. And so we had a whole debate on that. So, to me, it's a function created. My favorite quote in all this, and I'll post it up, was RevOps exists because Salesforce fucking complicated. GTM engineer now exists because Clay is complicated and hard to use. And so I think there's tooling that's trying to make Salesforce implementation easier, right? Like Sweep and things like that you can just talk to AI and it'll implement Salesforce for you. There will be tooling that makes all of these things easier, right? So what you're going to see is new tools creates new jobs. People make new tools to make those jobs easier, and those jobs come down. And so I feel like the number of people in the function will probably stay fairly similar, but the skill sets will change dramatically.
So over the last 12 or 18 months, let's say, as these AI apps sort of been introduced into the market, including the point apps like GPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., are you seeing a cluster of skills that are sort of emerging?
I mean, I don't know what those skills are yet. I don't think we know yet, right? Like there's prompt engineering, right? Like if it's just kind of like that one's been batted around for 2 years or so, that like prompt engineering can be a career. No, it won't be a career. But should you be fluent at I've learned a ton, right? Like we're training up AI all the time. Like every time somebody applies to Whispered, we work with this company called Scale Stack that I love a lot. They're kind of like an enterprise Clay alternative. And we send out our agents to understand these people, score them, rank them, do all that. And it took us like 4 months to really nail from 1 to 5 how good are the companies they've been at, right? Like that was like we went down a road, that road was wrong, we went down another road, but it's like I'm learning how to build those agents and prompts and working with. I think there's some people who are like, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. I'm like, no, I'm going to work with a great company like Scale Stack that can kind of guide my hand and do a lot for me. So I guess what I would say is like prompting, yes. The ability to kind of like code up apps in like a Retool or a Replit or a Lovable and build things it will be valuable. I think increasingly you're just going to need to have the technical skills to be able to do this stuff really well.
Going back to one of the points that you said earlier, I want to build on that. You said, basically RevOps is about data warehousing and having access to it in a structured and unstructured way. So when you look at some of the use cases that were demonstrated at Dreamforce, they were predominantly about connecting your conversational data, your email data, your support data, your product information, and the knowledge that the organization is sort of learning, which is a tribal knowledge in people's head, but it's getting transferred to a system knowledge, to a data warehouse, right? And then you're putting interfaces, part of workflow. And the 3 T's that came out of there, which is transfer, including tagging, right? Then you got to make sure they're tuned properly, and then continuous training of that model in production, because you're constantly learning. Are you seeing application skill sets that are people asking for with those kind of hands-on experience, or it has not emerged yet?
It's funny. Like I wrote an article in 2015 before Gong and Chorus existed, which was like, how can you manage your team without voice? I met the CEO of Chorus. I met the Gong team. And then that became into existence, right? So like that concept has been around for 10 years. Salesforce is like Dreamforce is always like whatever the hot thing was 6 or 9 months ago. And so like I remember it was like Gainsight was rocking and they were like, it's the CS Dreamforce. And so, I mean, I don't watch Dreamforce for the next trend, right? Like Momentum's been mapping, like Momentum has been built a really cool tool to map conversational data for a couple of years and has been way ahead, right? Like Gong hasn't quite caught up on that stuff yet. Gong may eventually build it, but I don't think you need to have a skill set to do that. You just have to find the right tool that can do that. And then, as running RevOps at a bigger company, you're always being the trade-off of, am I going to go buy the new tool, or am I going to wait for the existing vendors to build that tool into their functionality, right? Like, will Gong have what Momentum? I talk to Santi all the time, who's the founder of Momentum, and I'm like, dude, I love you, you're awesome, but like, will Gong have it? And then you got to determine like, do you want best of breed, or do you want like something that maybe not best of breed, and you have to figure it out. And then all of these spaces evolve from like best of breed to consolidated, and then you see spaces kind of evolve and consolidate. So like, I don't look at the trends from Dreamforce and jump on any of them, because I've been studying those trends for 4 or 5 years before they ever hit Dreamforce.
So you said you have a database of 10,000 companies. These are the companies that are looking for RevOps people?
No. We work with any unposted go-to-market roles. So sales, marketing, CS, and RevOps. We probably have the deepest database of unposted roles across all of those. That database is not every one of those is hiring at all times, but we monitor that subset. And then we also monitor like roles that come in from other sources. Like the roles, what we're also monitoring is if you're in your job search, who you work for, your boss, and the trajectory of the company are, to me, the two most important things, right? Like if you pick a tired, slow growth company, it's going to be hard to, like, I joined Culture Amp at 5 million. We'd moved it to 150. It opened up my whole career, right? Like if you pick something that's like tangential and slowing down, it's just not going to be that interesting. And if you pick the wrong person to work for. So we have 10,000 companies where we have confidential insights on the leadership teams, the business models, the trajectories of those companies, who's recently raised. I heard like an hour ago, like, hey, this new company raised 30 million, hasn't announced it yet. And so that's why we have 10,000 companies. At any given time, there is a subset of those that are hiring. And, I would say in the RevOps world, we probably know of 90% of the unposted roles. Sales and marketing and CS were more like 50 and climbing.
So if you look at this universe of 10,000 companies, right, do you have a sense what percent of them have adopted some sort of an AI feature cluster through their existing product like HubSpot or Salesforce or Clay, or plugging in independent, individual point apps?
No, I don't, because that data doesn't help the people that I want to help. That you can absolutely scrape that, right? Like there are signals, there's tech stack scraping, you could do that, but I'm trying to help people find the next role, not try to help people sell into those companies. And so my AI agents go out and scrape things like they look at all the job listings, and most people look at the job listings and try to figure out tech stack. I look at the job listings and try to figure out if you're a remote company, a hybrid company, or an in-office company. And so like all of our AI agents are scraping to understand, would you want to work there? Not how do you sell to them?
Got it. But do you have a sense in that universe what level of adoption has happened over the last 12 or 18 months?
Don't think macro. I don't. It's like I think macro is industry analysts trying to figure where the winds are blowing. I'm trying to figure out how to connect great people and great companies.
Got it. So at this moment, then, Andy, when you kind of think forward in 2026, there's like this whole AI bubble overhang that's out there. People are talking about.
It is. Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on that? I was going to get there.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody today. They're like, hiring's hotter than ever. I'm like, yes, but think about it this way. There are logical spaces. There is support. There is development. There is legal AI. There are like the logical spaces. And there are 10 to 15 companies fiercely competing in every single one of those, right? Like we have confidential insights on almost everyone building in the support space, right? Like and there is going to be a really rapid run up in adoption, and then it's going to mature. And you're going to see a lot of let's talk about one hot company in one of these AI space, like logical AI spaces, who was hot a year ago, and they're getting crushed on deals now, right? And so I think what you've seen is hyper competitive in each of the spaces, tons of players being funded, all the logical spaces have been attacked, and VCs have gone absolutely crazy in terms of funding, right? Like I got an email from a VC being like, hey, Andy, you went to Princeton and Stanford, early 50s. They were like, so can you introduce us to some engineers that might be graduating so we can fund them? I'm like, really? Like these people know nothing other than how to ship code. They don't know the problems. They don't understand this stuff, right? And it's like, we're ending up with this generation of 24-year-old founders that don't have maturity, that are empowered by founder mode, and some are going to absolutely catch lightning in a bottle, but a lot of them are going to flame out. And honestly, a lot of people struggle to report to people that have never actually managed anything before. And then, so I'm very cynical on, I think we're in a bubble, but I also think those bubbles create massive innovation at rapid rates, right? Like companies are just moving so fast. Personally, I'm past the 996 stuff, but I love it. I think it's like, I work more than 996 on anything I do. I'm like fully mentally in, but with kids, I wouldn't want to do it. So, but I love just the pace of innovation that's happening. And, similar to the .com bubble, the world changed when you had the internet, right? And this is going to be a massive change.
So when you talk to candidates that they're looking for a change, looking into 2026, do you see certain things that they're looking for from a stability or excitement or craziness? Like what are they looking for? Or do they vary as a function of their mindset?
Stability is not something that people should look for. I think it's like, if you're in a hyper competitive AI industry, like don't look for stability, look for working with great people and working at great companies. I think a lot of people get enamored by a title and go work at crappy little companies. And so then you end up seeing these people that have been like three no-name companies and they're trying to figure out why is no one trying to hire me? And the reason is because you've made bad choices a couple times. So, what are people looking for? I don't know. It's like everyone's looking for something slightly different, but I think if I was somebody, I would be prioritizing who I work for and what's the trajectory of that company. And is it in that breakout phase, right? Like we've got a fun article on like how to find breakout companies. What do they look like? How can they impact and inflect your career as well too?
So I have one last question. It's kind of going back to you. You have had an incredible career. You're onto a brand new venture. So can you walk us through what mindset allowed you to sort of keep on building the skill sets over the years that allowed you to be successful? And if you had to have an advice for someone in the 20s, as you just said, there's a lot of people starting their career. What would they be thinking through that are, lifelong skills that will last forever?
I think a lot of people I write a lot on this one. There's a lot on like skills and how to think about your career. So it's all on whispered on the playbooks. It's all free. But I guess I would say is like intellectual curiosity. I think a lot of people stay at a very theoretical level. Like, I used to early in life would like, here's a PowerPoint deck and I'd spend forever building the deck, but it's like, just go build, go get your hands dirty. Right. Like my last startup and then this one didn't start because I had an idea on a PowerPoint and decided to start it. It's just like I started building, right? Like I created an Airtable whenever anyone told me about a hot company or when anyone told me about a role. And then I created a form where people could put it in. And then I turned that Airtable into an app. And then I built that app into AI. And it's like, but you learn things by going deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I think a lot of people don't get their hands dirty. At Carta and Box, it's interesting, right? You're at running 30, 40, 50, 60 person teams. But for me, I always try to carve out enough room to get my hands a little bit dirty in those things. And, I oftentimes, I'm a big fan of if you're a good employee and you take ownership and you're good, like, I don't mind you having a side project, right? Like, I think it's actually good for your mental health and stuff like that. So I think the era of permanent employment at a company, we were here, the fact that people even call them careers pages anymore, I think is bullshit, right? Like they're not careers; they're like stop with us for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and it's interesting there.
Well, with that amazing note, Andy, I want to thank you for being here. I'd love to have you back. There's so much happening, and I guess you have a macro view on this, so it's quite amazing. But thank you for being here.
No, thanks. It's fun to stay connected to the world of RevOps when I'm more helping people figure out their careers in it, and I do that by just working with some companies I love.
Thank you.